Welcome back, fellow shop rats. Today we're going to talk about how we deal with family members who aren't necessarily very understanding of our passion, obsession, or hobby.
This is My Cars Shop.
I think unless we are connected with somebody who is as dyed in the wool of a car guy or gal as we are, there's going to be some tensions that come about in our family lives with people who don't necessarily have that same level of passion, desire, and insanity as we do about classic cars, hot rods, muscle cars, or antique cars. And that's legitimate. We all are different, and we all have different tastes and views, and we have to learn how to compromise and deal with the realities of everyday life. When you have been as immersed in this whole genre of stuff as long as I have, it just tends to escalate, and I do tend to think larger than life in most things. And when you're the kind of person who really doesn't see obstacles, nothing really scares you when it comes to a project car, you can bring home some pretty nasty looking pieces of garbage that can even make the most understanding spouse raise their eyebrows and say, "Really?" I have been very blessed with a wife who is super understanding and really doesn't give me any crap about the hobby at all, or especially, when it was my profession and so forth. But, it's kind of what she signed up for. I had multiple old cars when we first started dating and got married, and I worked in hot rod shops and in dealerships and then in automotive engineering. And so, for at least half of our lives together, cars have been a huge part of that. And, there's she has some cars that she'd like, and she's always kind of wanted to have a 67 Plymouth Belvedere, not a post car like I'm building now, but like a GTX type, and a few other cars along the way. The one I'm driving right now is actually her car, and she really likes this. This is the 2018 Mini Countryman all-wheel drive turbo. This is her daily. So she likes cool cars, but that doesn't mean that she gets the reason why I have to have 17.6 acres of junk cars sitting around and 8,000 square feet of spare car parts, and car parts in the bedroom, and car parts in the basement, and car parts in the back of 3 or 4 pickup trucks, and a couple minivans loaded up with car parts. There's a lot of stuff, is what I'm trying to say. And we've been together for 41 years, and we've been married for 36 of those 41 years, so she's kind of used to me by now. It reminds me of that line from the Marx Brothers movie when one of the Marx Brothers is asking one of the characters in the show and says,
"Do you love your brother?"
I'm just used to him.
I think the number one thing in dealing with that, if you're like me and you have this sickness, is communication and talking about it and finding out how other people feel about things. And I think the second thing is also sharing your vision and your thoughts, why you like it, what it means to you, what it does for you. I know we went through some super, super difficult times as a family back around 2007. And it was around the time I was building my 47 Ford. And she was very gracious to know that that I had that, and it was one thing that was kind of keeping me with my fingernails barely hanging on to sanity at the time of what we were going through. So, we have no control, obviously, over what somebody else does, but I think by the way we handle things, we really can set a tone in those relationships and in those dynamics. If we're defensive and being a jerk, there's not going to be much understanding. But I think opening ourselves up and sharing is important. It's key. It's we don't want the people in our family to be rolling their eyes and shaking their heads and talking behind our backs to other people about all of this garbage that we have, and because it's not what it is. And a lot of times it's because we haven't taken the chance to just like humble ourselves a little bit and just talk about what's significant in our worlds. I don't want to turn this into a couples therapy session, but I also think the second side in that we can go a long way in our own lives by showing interest in what the people around us are interested in, asking questions, volunteering to help, being willing to help if we're asked, learning. One of the things that we do together is we have another channel called Our Place, which Our Place Homestead, which is a homesteading channel, and we do projects around the homestead and so forth. I'm not as into that as Becky is, but we watch a lot of YouTube shows about homesteading, and I find that interesting, and it gives us something that we can talk about, and it helps me understand what she's wanting to accomplish around the homestead, so that I can be a help and be proactive and do what I do to help what she's interested in. Let me clarify, it's not that I'm not interested, it's just not something that I would be doing if I was in a different life circumstance. But this is the circumstance we're in, and that is what makes the most sense to me is, relationships are all about giving and not so much taking. I think the hardest thing is being willing to ask the people around us how they feel about things and what's their pet peeves about what we do and what would they like to see different about what we do and that kind of stuff, and being willing to just shut your pie hole and listen to what they say. That doesn't mean we need to rearrange our entire world around it. But we had an example, and I'll share this with you. I don't think Becky would mind me sharing. I think it's cool to have cars, unrestored cars that are in the queue to be done, lined up in front of the barn. I love coming home and turning in and seeing some rusty old muscle cars or old antique cars sitting out there waiting for me to get to. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the big reasons is it spurs my mind on thinking about what things I want to accomplish and what needs to accomplish. It gives the car a chance to talk to me and tell me what it wants, and it keeps those things kind of just at the subconscious level of my mind because I see them all the time. I tend to be an out of sight, out of mind kind of person, so I like them. Plus, I personally think it looks cool. Now, I don't think it looks cool if the grass is all growing up around them and the weeds are growing up through them, and I don't like that. But I think a well-manicured area with some old cars sitting out like that is pretty cool. She doesn't necessarily agree with that, and she tends to think that it makes the place look a bit junky, and from her perspective, I completely get that. Well, one thing was happening, I don't know, last year before last, and for whatever reason, I moved the cars from in front of the barn and moved them parallel to the barn and lined them up this way, so they're side by side along the edge of the driveway rather than along the front of the building. And she came home from work and said, I like that much better because you can't see all of the cars all at once. They kind of hide each other a little bit and the place looks neater. And I went, well, that's cool. I never thought of that. And so since then, we've kept the cars there, and I kind of like it, to tell you the truth. I still get that mental stimulation that I need in looking at those cars, and I get her point. It really doesn't, if you're not a car person, it doesn't look like a bunch of old junk rusty cars sitting there.
Don't tell anybody. But it's true. They are old junky rusty cars. Don't tell anybody that.
Communication isn't just about sharing what you feel. It's also about asking what other people feel, and that means you may kind of get chewed on a little bit, but I think honesty is important. Again, that doesn't mean that we're going to change everything we do and we're going to scrap all of our cars and take up basket weaving, but I think having that dialogue and knowing what somebody else feels and being able to ask some questions and say, are there things we could, I'm going to do this hobby, but are there things we could change around here that maybe make it better for you? Oh, there's a novel idea. It shows a willingness and an openness, and that goes a long, long way, in my opinion, to helping soothe over some of those sore spots in dealing with all the stuff we have that goes with this old car obsession that so many of us share. That's going to do it. We'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to rock!